Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. You're watching Indigo Tech Tutorials. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to build a blog using Ruby on Rails. So I know this is an idea that a lot of people have been asking for, and it's actually usually the most basic app that people suggest you to build when you're learning Ruby on Rails. And probably for other languages too, it's similar because it's just so simple. But first of all, I'm going to open up the terminal. I'm going to come in here. I'll just zoom in real quick so you can see it. And I'll quickly verify that I have Ruby on Rails installed by typing ruby-v to check the Ruby version. You also want to make sure that this is up to date. So we're on 3.41, which is the latest version. I'm also going to check the Rails version, which is 8.01. So good, everything's set up, and we're ready to start building our website. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a folder real quick to organize my apps so it's not just on the main directory. So I'm going to make there, and I'll call this, I guess I'll just call it YouTube apps because these will be the apps I build for my YouTube channel. Also, like always, I'm going to put the source code in the description. So if you want to just download it and mess with the app, you can go ahead, go down to the description and get it. But I encourage you to follow along because this tutorial is going to teach you a lot about coding and how to use Ruby on Rails. So now that we're inside the folder, I'm going to create the new Rails app by typing Rails new. I'm just going to call this blog. Now we can pass in a few options depending on if you want to have a certain database. We could do -d instead of database. So I usually like to use PostgreSQL. So I'll just do -d PostgreSQL, which will set up Postgres as the database in our app. I'm also going to set the CSS framework by doing -c, and I'll set this to Tailwind. So now that we have this configured, I'm going to press enter, and it'll go through and generate our brand new Rails app. So you're going to want to give it a second. It's going to be setting up everything that you need inside your app, including Tailwind, since I added that option. Boom, just like that, we have our app generated. So now I'm going to cd into the blog. Boom, and we can test it out and see if it works by typing bin/dev. And if you don't get any errors right now, that's a good thing. So now we can go to the browser, type in localhost:3000, and we'll see that our app is running, although it says we couldn't find your database. So all we have to do is just create the database real quick by clicking the button. And now we have our app online and everything's working with Rails. All right, so now that we have this simple skeleton of a Rails app, get started by generating some pages. And really specifically, I'm going to generate the blog post model. And we're going to do this using a scaffold, which will set up everything from the list of blog pages, the show page for the blog post, and the forms for editing and creating new posts. So we can get all of that stuff out of the box with Rails just by typing one command, which is probably one of my favorite things about Rails, even though there's so much more than just this, but this is great for beginners, by the way. So all you have to do is just type in Rails scaffold, and we're going to put in the name of the model. So you could do either post, or if you want, you can call it blog post, which is probably what I'm going to do. And then we can give it a few attributes for what the blog post should have. So probably for a blog post, we would have the title, and then we'd have the body of the post, which I'm going to make rich text. Now, rich text just means that it's going to have a more advanced text editor than just a plain text field. It's going to give you stuff like indenting, underline, bold for the text. So like all that stuff is built in, and we already have that with Rails if you just do :rich text. We might also want to put some SEO stuff. So if we want to have like a meta description, you type text. So this would go into the header, set the meta description. That could be helpful. You could even do something like meta title. And then there's even like the OG image. So the image that would go into the meta, although I might just call that meta image, and that's going to be type attachment, which when we say :attachment, it's going to use active storage to store a file. And another thing that we probably want is an image for the post, like a banner image that we show at the top. I could just put that right here, banner image, :attachment. And then if there's anything else, maybe tags. Usually blog posts might have a tag, so we could do tags type text, and this seems pretty good for now. What we'll do is we'll press enter, going to generate the scaffold. Now the next thing we're going to do real quick is we're going to run the command to install action text, which will also set up active storage. So to do that, we can just run rails action text install and press enter, and it's that simple. All it's going to do is add like a couple files and also some migrations. Now that we have that set up, we can migrate the database with Rails DB migrate. Boom, we now have all of these new tables inside of our database. And we can check out the code now. We can check out the app by restarting the server, going over to the browser. Now you'll notice that nothing has changed here. We still see the Rails screen, but what we do have is some new routes /blog_posts. You'll notice that we have this whole blog post page, and it says no blog post found right now, but we'll be able to create a new one just like this. And check that out. We have this whole form with literally zero work, which is just insane. I hope you guys realize how incredible this is in Rails. I mean, they might have something like scaffold for like JavaScript, but this is just so incredible that it's out of the box. You don't even need to install any packages to get this. All right, so to create a blog post, we can just put in like all the data that we want to show. So I don't really want to have to think about coming up with this content right now. So I'm going to go and use AI to generate it. A title, body, and meta description, SEO. Press enter, and actually inside of our app, you have to turn on an agent to get it to respond. So I'm actually going to create a new agent. We'll go with 3.2, create that agent, and then I'm going to make sure that it is enabled by turning on the toggle switch. And now I'm going to redo the same question. Now we can see that it's working. It should be able to come up with a great blog post. Okay, so now that we got that blog post generated, I'm going to just copy this over into our form. See, this is the meta description. So I'll grab that, put it in there. Let's get the blog post. Take that here. Although, actually, oh wait, the blog post is this whole thing. I was about to say that didn't look like that long of a thing. So we'll copy the whole thing, drop it in here. And what you'll notice is because we're using rich text, we have like the bolding, and even you can have the list inside of the text field, which is pretty awesome. And then meta title, I guess maybe there isn't a meta title. I'm just going to put the same thing. And for the images, I'm going to go to Unsplash and grab a random image for this blog post. And we can just go ahead and drop that in both of these places. We even got tags too, right here in keywords. We'll grab tags right here, drop it in, and then click create blog post. And boom, just like that, we have this brand new blog post set up. Cool. So now we've tested the functionality, we have a working form, but there's still a couple things that we can do to make this website a whole lot better. Let's start off by setting the route in our app. So right now, we just have, like, look, when you go to the main page in our app, it just shows this Rails logo. So let's go ahead and change that. Now we're gonna open up our app in our code editor. I'm gonna do that by typing code dot. Just like that, we have our app open. And then we can go ahead and start the server again. And now that we're inside the code, the first place we're going to head is over to the config routes.rb. And I'm going to go down to the bottom where we have this route commented out. I'm going to delete the comment, and then I'm going to set this to set up posts. Since our model is called blog posts, I'm going to set it to the blog post index. And we can go ahead and reload. And now on our home page, this is what it kind of looks like. I have this index page of blog posts. What you'll notice is that it's just listing the whole post, which is probably not something we want to do. So probably think about what we want to work on first. I think that might be what we want to do because I know for sure we have an image that we could use. So I'd probably rather just show like some cards with an image and then a button to go and read the blog post, something like that. So let's get started with that feature. So what I'll do is I'll go over to the app, views, blog posts, and then we're going to go to the index file. And inside of this file, let's take a look at what's happening. So at the top, we have like these links. Then we have a div for the blog posts where we're just like looping over each blog post. And there's even like this whole check. So honestly, I'm just going to delete this whole thing. I don't really need that. What I'll do instead is on this blog post div, I'm going to add a grid class. I'm going to set grid calls 4, and I'll add a gap. This means that inside, any element that you put will get organized into grid, which means be 4 items on each thing, and it'll kind of like block it off into grid sections, which is a great thing that you can do just with plain CSS. But I'm using Tailwind CSS to do the inline styling because it's a bit faster. All right, so now that we're inside of here, what we can just simply do, we can say render posts, just like this. And what it'll do is it'll render that blog post collection, and it'll use the matching partial for the name. So if you notice inside of our blog post folder, we have an underscore blog post file. So this is what's going to be rendered. And inside of this partial, it has like all of the content for the whole blog post. So if we reload, probably going to get an unexpected result. Check it out. Now it's like the same exact post, but now it's just squared off, or it's like smaller, and that's because of that grid column setup. So really what we want is, I don't want to even display the whole content just like this. What I want to do instead is just show a card. So to do that, let's just go ahead and delete all of the content in this blog post partial, and we'll just redo this from scratch. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a div to width full rounded large, and I'm going to give it a set height. So I'll just do height 80. We can even give it a background for now, BG grade 500. And we can go reload, see what that looks like. See, we have this nice card. So that's very cool. Now, one thing I want to do is I want to quickly add some margin. This div that's rendering the post. Space it out. All right, that looks cool. Now inside of the card, I'm going to put is, if we have the image, I'll just display the image, the background or something, or maybe like put it on the top. Let's go ahead and do that. So inside of the blog post partial, I'm going to check if blog post dot banner image, because that's probably what I'll use. If the banner image is attached, then we are going to put an image tag. Post image. If we reload, we should see that our image gets displayed inside of the card, which is very nice. We probably want to set a width on this. Actually, not a width. We want to set a fixed height. So since our card is height of 80, I might just do height 64. And that's a Tailwind class, by the way. It kind of like, it looks like it takes the same, but now we know for sure that no matter what size the image is, it'll be in the same sort of size. And then what we can do is set the object cover to make sure that this image is going to try to cover the whole div. And you saw as soon as I did that, it kind of looks like it zoomed out, because that's what object cover does. Now for the card, we have these weird square, like we have square corners for the image, even though the card is rounded. And that's just like a little CSS thing. We can fix that by just adding overflow hidden card, or we could just go to the image tag and make this rounded large. Although one thing to note is that it is going to add rounded on the bottom. So if you don't like that, which it is kind of like distracting, we can actually change that by saying rounded top large, rounded -t -large. Now it's only going to be rounded on the top, and that looks pretty good to me. So now what we could do is we could add a button. I'm thinking like somewhere in here to let you click and read the blog post. So that would be underneath the image. But actually, if there's no image for the blog post, we might want to have a backup just so that our styling doesn't get messed up. We could just say else. What I'll do is I'll copy the same image tag with styling and everything, and then we'll just try to set like a default image, which we can put inside of our app. So let's go to Unsplash again. I'm going to look up books. I feel like that's pretty good image for a default blog post. All right, and then what we'll do is I'll go back into the code, and we're going to need to drop that in the app assets images folder. I'll go ahead and do that. Drop our image in, and I'm also going to rename it just to make it a little bit easier to reference. Just call it books.jpg. And then we can put this inside of our image tag. So now we have a fallback, just in case for whatever reason we didn't set an image when we were creating the blog post. Cool. So now that we have that set up, I'm going to go underneath the images, create a second div. What I'll do is I'll say width full, height full. I'm going to add flex, and then we'll do, we don't actually need to do any class for just now, any positioning class. But now that we have this, I'm going to add link to, and what you usually do is you put the text first. So we can say like read post, and then we'll put a comma, and we'll pass in this blog post, and Rails will already know that we're going to want to create a route to go to this blog post. So if we reload, you'll see that there is like this little link, but it's not styled at all. So it doesn't even look like it is the button to read the blog post. So what we'll do is we'll add some styling here. So what I like to do is I usually just do this by hand. I'll add like some padding, some rounding, and then even like a gradient. Do BG gradient to right, blue to purple. Even get fancy and do via to add 3 colors into one. And then we can set the text color by saying, I think it's just text 50. And all right, let's take a look and see how that comes out. Oh, that's so weird. So the styling. Oh, I think I did the gradient wrong. So BG gradient to -r. Oh, now it shows up. But I have no idea why it's sticking out like that. That's weird. Probably has something to do with this div that's height full. Oh, you know what I think I need to do is on this div, we need to add flex call class. That should position everything a little bit better. But we still have this weird thing with the button. And I think it's because I'm doing height full on the button. Am I? No, I'm not doing height full on the button. What we can do is we can add an item center to this div to position the read post link in the center a little bit more. And we can also add padding on the left, see, because it's kind of like it's directly on the side of the card, which has like a little bit of a weird UI. So we'll add some padding to the left and right, doing px4. And now we get this nice post button. And when we click on it, it actually brings us to the blog post. Although one thing you'll notice is now on the blog post, showing the card, because that's how they usually render. That's like how they render the show page. They just reused the partial, which is kind of interesting. So we're just going to want to go to that show page and update that now. But another thing I was thinking is that we should show the title of the post probably above the button, just so people know like what the post is about before they go to read it. What I'll do is I'm actually going to increase the size of this card. Let's go height 96. And then for the button, we could set a fixed height on that if we wanted to. Or we could just create another div and we'll set a fixed height for the title. What we can do is we can add like a div class, give it a height of 16. And then what we'll do is I'm going to add just go with a P tag for the title. I'm going to give it text XL, so it's going to be kind of bigger. And then I'll make it a lighter color so it sticks off from the card background. And we can just simply print in blog post title. When we reload, we now get the title right there, so that looks pretty cool. Although we could add some padding, x4, here, add some padding on the title. You know, we probably also want to like truncate it just in case it tries to go, if there's a really long title. Actually, when we truncate it, I don't know if I like that better. What we can do is we can at least say like overflow hidden. See what happens. All right, it looks like it's fine because this title is actually large enough. This is cool. We might want to change the text color. I don't know if I really like that. We could also make it bold so it sticks out a little bit more. We do font bold, or we could do semi-bold. Now when we reload, this looks pretty nice, but I might change the color. Actually, I'm gonna try to resize it. Oh, one thing I notice on mobile, the card gets kind of squished. And the reason is because back on the blog post index page, we set this grid calls, and what we want to do is add a breakpoint so that we only are doing 4 columns on like larger devices. We could say medium devices will have 3 columns, and then just on regular devices, the default is to have 1 column. So if we reload, yeah, now our post shows up correctly for mobile screens. So that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to go back to the partial. I want to change that gray color. I don't really like the gray. Maybe I'll just try to do lighter. Oh yeah, lighter color, that's good. Although now the text disappears. So we probably want to change that and make it darker now. So I'll just change that to text gray 900. And boom. Now, I think this looks pretty good, at least for now. And I do want to add some sort of hover effect for this button because it looks weird just like hovering and not having anything happen. What we could do is you just go right onto the link and say hover scale 105. Now when you hover, it's actually going to get a bit larger. If you wanted to go crazy, we could add a group class onto the card, and then we could do custom styling. Whenever you hover over the post, it could do stuff. So let's say on the image, if we wanted it to like zoom in on the image or something, we could do group dash hover. Let's do scale 105. Look at that. So now when you even hover over the post, it zooms in the image, which is kind of cool. I've seen people do that before. So I'm going to make sure that that's going on both our banner image and also the default image. Now, one thing you notice is that if you look at the image, it's actually like going outside of the card, which I don't really like. So to fix that, I think we can just add overflow hidden to the image itself. Come here and do overflow hidden. And oh, that's weird. Okay, that didn't really work how I thought. We never put a width on the image, so I'm gonna set width full. That's weird. Overflow hidden seems to do something weird to the images. So maybe I won't put it there. What we can do is we can just add overflow hidden to the card. So now it doesn't go outside the card, but it kind of like it intrudes onto the title a little bit, like kind of goes in there. So that's another thing that I don't really want to have happen. So another idea is just to create a wrapper around the image. So around this whole if statement, we could just have a div. We could put the height and width here. So let's say like width full, height 64, even add flex class. And I'm gonna add overflow hidden so that nothing inside of it will be able to overflow that width and height. And then we could even take off this fixed height from the images and replace that with height full. See how that works. Or right away, the weird thing, like the size gets all messed up, which is interesting. Maybe it's the flex. Let's get rid of the flex real quick. No, okay, it definitely wasn't that. For some reason, image is smaller. I really want to figure this out real quick. It's like doing height. I'm gonna try to hard code it. Weird. Wait, for a second it was like working correctly. This one's supposed to be height 64. I try to set a background on here. Go background. Yeah, look, I can't even see it. So for whatever reason, this width and height isn't actually working correctly. Huh. Let's get rid of overflow hidden. Wait, and now so for whatever reason, overflow hidden is doing something weird. Is no idea. Let me try to add flex back. What happens? Great, looks fine. We say, yeah, it's weird. What I want to have happen is to be able to zoom in. Okay, forget that. Let's not do scale. I think another way to do this is just to set like the object CSS. Let me look this up. Maybe object fit. That's usually how you add those styling to images. We have this like pane, cover, fill. So we could always try to like try another option. I usually do hover, but we could try. What we could do is on the group hover, instead of changing the scale, we can change like the object of object fill. I have no idea if there's even going to be a difference or not. Yeah, I don't see any difference. It's probably just wasted styling. Alright, forget it. I don't really care about that effect. Let's move on. I think this is pretty good for now. Well, let me make sure that this height for the title is actually showing up correctly. I'm gonna try to reduce it real quick. Yeah, it doesn't work because the text still overflows on the button. What we want to do is we want to add overflow hidden to that text. And now if you see, oh, it's like, that's the real height that it has. So there's actually some weird styling stuff going on right now. Unless maybe that is like what height 10 looks like. Always possible. I don't think so. Full 36. Yeah, there's no way. I know for a fact that height should be larger. Unless maybe they changed it. Look at this, height 32 should be this size. So no, they didn't change it. There's just some weird stuff going on. But there probably was, I think there was actually a big update to Tailwind recently. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. This is crazy. So on this top div, what if we get rid of the flex on this? What does that do? Okay, that that totally breaks the button. So see, the flex class was important there. For some reason, for whatever reason, this width is getting messed up. Oh, wait, I know exactly what it is. Guys, because we're saying height full, this bottom div, like going into the other div space, because that's usually with flex, that's what it tries to do. Like whatever has the full height is going to try to be larger than all the other elements, which is pretty crazy. So as soon as I got rid of that height full, everything kind of went back to where it was supposed to be. What we could do, we could leave height full, But on the div surrounding the title, I'm going to add flex string 0, which will tell flex that this element is not going to get stringed. And look, as soon as we do that, now it's taking up the full height and it's just pushing that button all the way out. That's what flex shrink does. What we can do is we can reduce this height, go back to like height 16, and all right, this looks way more accurate. What we probably want to do is just do height 14 maybe. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. Although I do want to truncate. I think what we can do is we can say instead of overflow hidden, overflow ellipsis. Pretty sure. Although, no. Let me look this up. Overflow tailwind. Maybe it's text overflow. Yeah, I think there's two different things. You can say text ellipsis. We can do overflow hidden plus text ellipsis. Reload, and I guess it's basically the same thing. So yeah, that doesn't really matter too much. Yeah, it's cool. That's fun messing with the styling a little bit. So now let's focus on this show page for the blog post. And right away, I think one thing I want to do is I want to change the URL. Because if you look in the URL, when you go to the blog post, it's just going to be like /blogpost1, which is not a really intuitive thing for a user, especially if they're going to copy this, share it to people. It would be better to put the name of the blog post inside of the URL. And another thing that helps with is SEO. So for your page to show up in Google, having that title in the URL is going to help so much. It's going to help the search engines to know what this URL is about. What we can do is, first of all, I'm going to get rid of the blog post in the URL. So we don't actually have to have this / like namespace. We could just have it be straight like this, like / the blog post. Right now it's using ID. So to get that to work first, let's go over to config routes.rb. What we'll do is we'll go up to this resources blog post. And I'm going to set the path option, and I'm just going to set it to empty. Now if we reload, we no longer have a route for this / blog post, but we do have a route for / the ID of the blog post. It's very interesting. That's a smart thing to do, although be careful because now any of your other routes could get messed up, because when you're going / anything now, it's going to, problem with this is that it's going to look for a blog post first. So all of the routes in your app can actually get messed up from this setup. So it becomes really, really tricky. We're going to want to be careful with setting the paths to empty. Like, especially, I don't even think we can say like edit. Oh wait, we can. But if it's just a straight route, if you're just going like straight, like /, let's say we had an about page, that would now cause an error because it's saying couldn't find blog post with the ID because everything is going directly to that page. But there is some things that you could do to get around this, like setting the restraints. But for right now, keep this very simple for this video. We could just set the path to just something like smaller, I guess. So let's just say B for blog. How about that? And now that gets rid of a lot of those potential errors. And when you go to the URL, now it has just like /b and then / the ID. So what we can do now is let's change, instead of the URL using the ID, I want to use a slug. And what a slug is it means it's going to take the title or whatever sort of thing you want to use for it, and it's going to convert it into something you could put in the URL. So what I like to do for this is I'll go to friendly ID. It's a gem for Ruby on Rails just specifically, although it probably works with other frameworks. What we'll do is I'm going to copy this friendly ID gem. We're going to put this inside of our gem file. So the gem file is located in the main folder in our app. Go over to this gem file and drop in the gem for friendly ID. Then we'll go back to the terminal. I'm going to run bundle to actually install this gem. And there is a couple other commands we have to run real quick. So we're gonna have to add a slug column to the table. So our table is blog posts. We'll do Rails G migration add slug to blog post. Now, if you write your migrations correctly, it'll automatically like set up a lot of things that are helpful. So this is another crazy part of Rails. What I mean is we can say like add this to this model, and it already knows what we're talking about just because of the name of the migration. We also have to put fields in though. That's important. So we're going to say slug, and this is going to be unique. We want to make sure that this slug is always unique for each post. And we can press enter, and it, as you can see, it created this migration file. And I'm going to run cat on this, or you could even just look at it. You could open it up inside of your code editor. Inside of the db migrate folder, it would be whatever's the most recent migration. And as you can see, it's adding a new column, slug, which is type string. And it's also adding an index to make sure that that slug column is unique for the blog post. That's very cool already. The last thing that we can do is run Rails DB migrate the database. Let's see. Oh, and we do have to run this Rails G friendly ID. I'm gonna go ahead and run that, which adds another migration. So we actually have to migrate the database again. Every time you add a migration, you're gonna have to migrate the database just to add those. See, it's gonna like actually add the columns and fields to the database table. All right, and if we could look back in here, seems like we're good. The last thing is basically just adding this extend and friendly ID method to the model. We'll go ahead and do that. Open up the code, and we'll head over to the app models in the blog post.rb. And right at the top, I'm going to add this extend friendly ID. Instead of name, I'm going to use title. And then we can leave this slugged. Cool. So right away, we've now set a slug. So what's going to happen is on any new blog post that we create, it's going to automatically create the slug. But on existing blog posts, it's not going to have it. So what we have to do real quick is let's go into the terminal, and we're going to run Rails C to enter the Rails console. So if you're not familiar with the Rails console, this is a place where you can execute commands in your Rails app, and you can actually directly interact with your models. So we can talk to like the blog post. We can say blog post.count. And as you can see, we have one blog post. We do .last. See that this is what the blog post looks like. And as you can see, the slug is nil. But what happens with friendly ID is every time you save, it's going to set the slug from whatever you're using for the slug. So see, we're using title. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run this find each save. This is what they actually provide you on the GitHub. They'll tell you to run this find each and save to make sure that all of your existing posts or your existing models will get the slug. All right, so there we go. Now I'm going to exit out of here, restart the server, and the last place we have to change is inside of the controllers. So we'll go to app controllers blog posts, and all the way at the bottom where we're setting the blog post, right now we're just using find with the ID. And we actually want to change this to just .friendly.find for the friendly ID, and now it's going to look it up via the slug. And the cool thing is that it actually supports either the slug or the ID. So if someone does pass in the ID, or if, like, let's say you had old routes that were already linked to that ID, it's going to still work properly. So that's pretty cool. We can reload and go to read post. And now, boom, look at the URL. Very pretty. It looks awesome. And if you went to share that with somebody, they would right away be able to see, like, okay, this is what the blog post is in the URL. I'm going to try to use the ID, like I said, and it still works, see? So everything's working great. Boom, we just got the slug out of the way. So now I want to style this blog post page because this is so ugly right now, of course, because we're showing the card from the index page. We definitely don't want to do that. Let's go back in the code. I'm going to clear out all these things, and then we'll go over to the app views, blog posts, show page. So we're finally going to mess with the show page. So on this show page, first of all, the H1, instead of just saying showing blog post, let's put in at blog post dot title. Boom. Now we get the title at least. And oh, I'm going to get rid of this render blog post. See, when you do render blog post, it's going to render our partial, which I'm using for card. I'm using for the card on the index page. I'm not using it to render the actual content, which is what they do by default. So as soon as we reload this, we now only see the title and also the buttons at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is we're going to have to manually add in all the content that we want to display, which is actually a good thing because we're going to have more control on the styling. So first of all, I want to put the banner image at the very top. So I'll do image tag, and I'll pass in post dot banner image. I'm going to add some styling. Width full, let's go height 64 and an object cover. And we're also going to only show this if there is a banner image attached. We could also use the backup like we had for the other app. Like we could put the backup image in. All right, right away, one thing I don't like is that the post, it's not stretching the full width. It kind of is getting like cut to a certain width. And that's because of this div right here. See, we're saying mid 2/3. So I don't actually want that. I'm just going to delete that and do width full. Also going to add flex call just in case. Make sure that my items are stacked on top of each other. Although one thing that does do is it breaks the buttons at the bottom. But I mean, I don't really love those buttons anyways. I'm probably going to change those. But real quick, we could, I guess, add a div around them, do flex, maybe item center, 4, just wrap all these divs. We probably don't need this inline wrapper around this button. Okay. Not bad, although there is like a little bit of styling stuff. I think it's because we have margin. I have some margin on these buttons, so I'm just going to remove all the margin. We also don't need inline block, but that doesn't really matter that much. All right, yeah, that seems good. Probably want to add some margin top. Just do margin top 8. Push that down a little bit. By the way, we're going to get to building the admin section. So like we only want admin users to be able to edit the post, but let's just style this show page real quick and then we can move on to doing that. So what I'll do is right underneath the H1, I'm going to put a P, and this is where I'm going to put the blog post content. Just shove in, just straight up put, actually it doesn't have to be a P, it's probably better to do it in a div. In this div, mostly I want to just add some margin. So we say my5. We can even do my8. It'll like push the title and the bottom buttons away from it a little bit. And we can just put blog post. I think I called it body. But as soon as we do that, boom, we get the body of the blog post, and it's already nice and styled with rich text. That's very cool. Yeah, it's looking really good, in my opinion, already. And if we wanted to, let's say, put the tags underneath, we can do that. So we might want to have another div here. Say flex call. And I'm going to add a span where I can list out the tags. Say blog post tags. And we're putting this in the embedded Ruby, of course. Get it to render. Now we have the tags down here. Although you can't really tell that those are tags. So we might want to add like tags thing, I don't know. I could also add gap between these items. Push them out a little bit. All right, that's not bad at all. Cool, so already this is a very, very simple blog app. I'm pretty happy with it. Probably the one last thing that I really want right away is like a link to go back to all the blog posts. I'll probably just put this right up at the top. And I'll kind of go for a breadcrumb vibe. If you don't know what those are, it's something that you see in websites all the time where it's actually like a link to whatever the previous page is. And it adds a really good experience for the user. So we'll add a div class. say flex gap 4. We'll close up that div. We're going to have two different links. So the first one is just going to say, link to, just say like all posts. This is going to go back to post path. And we can add some styling here. Text XL. And we're going to do dark text because we have a light background. Go ahead and see what that looks like. So we have this all posts link like that. You know what? I'm going to add some margin to margin bottom. It's not just like directly on top of the image. I'm also, well, we could always style the fonts. If the font isn't great right now, I guess this is actually fine. Now what we want to do is we want to add another link. I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to link to, I guess I would probably just put in the blog post.title as the text. And this is going to go to just the same post that you're on. And actually what I want to do is I want to add a caret. I don't know if it's caret. Like, is that a caret? The greater than sign. So we're going to do that because that's usually what I see inside of these. There's like usually like this caret kind of that shows that side, or maybe it's the other way around. This. I want to reduce the gap. Let's just do gap 2. All right, I think this looks pretty decent for now. Might just add a hover effect so that you can tell that they are actually links. So we can do, a good thing to start with is hover underline. So now when you hover, yeah, like you definitely know that that is that. And oh yeah, I think this experience is very good as a user. Here, you can read a post, check it out, go back. Like honestly, this is already pretty good for now. Like adding an admin is really important. I think this is a great start. Like this is basically just a fully completed blog app. But what I do want to do is I want to add that admin section just to seal the deal, finalize this app. So what we're going to do is for user accounts and for like authentication, all that stuff for the admin, I'm going to use a gem called Devise. It's a very famous and well-known gem in the Rails ecosystem. Even though in the new version of Rails, there's a built-in authentication generator, but it just takes so much configuration. Like you have to build your own sign-up page and everything and like controller. So I don't even want to mess with that. I just want this to be really quick out of the box. So what we'll do is we're going to bundle add Devise. We're just going to grab that Devise gem. Then we're going to do Rails G Devise :install. Just going to set up the initial configuration for Devise. They're going to ask for a few things like setting a route to home. They also are going to want some flash messages. Now, I think we're already showing flash messages in our app on the index page. So if I go to index, see like we are showing notices, which we might not even want to do that there. Yeah, maybe I'll just delete that because I don't really want to show notices in line, at least not right now. The same thing on the show page, we're showing notices. Let me just delete that. And right, form is going to show errors. We definitely want to keep that. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in my own alerts by going to layouts application. And what I'll do is at the top of the body, I'm going to render a partial, be layout/alerts. We're going to create that partial by doing a new file, calling this _.alerts.html.erb. And inside of this, I'm going to go to the Devise, or actually back into the terminal. That's where they show it. So we can copy this simple setup for notices and alerts. Just drop this right here. So now we're going to show those, which is important because if something goes wrong when the user is like signing up, although since it's admin, it really doesn't matter to show the alerts now that I'm thinking about it. Because yeah, admin, when you're in admin side, it doesn't really matter that much. But if this was for a customer, if you're building a blog site for a customer, then of course you definitely want to show alerts because that customer might not be tech savvy or coder. All right, so now Oh, the other thing that they say is you can copy devise views, but actually I have a devise tailwind gem which will style the devise views for tailwind. So I'm going to use that. Say bundle add tailwind underscore devise, and we'll do that command instead. It's going to be Rails G tailwind underscore devise views, and boom, now we have some sign-in views for devise. The last thing that we're going to need to do is create our model that we're going to sign in with. So we can do Rails G devise and the name of the model. So usually you'll see people say like user, although in this app it's more like admin. People usually do admin a lot too. So say Rails G devise admin. That's all you really need. Just press enter. It's going to generate this admin model. And now we can migrate the database. And just like that, we have admins in our app. So what I'll do is I'll reload, and nothing has really changed. But what we can do now is we can lock down a lot of these things. Like, if you go to create a new blog post, you shouldn't be able to do this unless you're an admin. So let's go ahead and lock that down. And what they call that is authorization. So there's two things in Rails app that usually with here, it's like, well, there's a lot of things, but when it comes to user sign-ins, user privileges, there's two things that usually here. It's going to be authorization and authentication. So authentication is logging into account, but authorization is what permissions a specific user has. And there's actually gems that'll help you like fine-tune that really specifically, so that users have like all these permissions. One gem that I can think of is can. You might want to look that up. Anyways, we're not going to use that for this video because that's way too intense. And we already know like there's only one type of user that's going to be able to do stuff, so we don't need something as complex as that. All we need is to go into the controllers, blog post controller, and we'll do some custom authorization here. So what we'll say, we can actually say before action, there's already a built-in method inside of devise. What I have to say is authenticate admin, although realistically, you don't even want to show your customers the admin login screen. That's actually probably a bad idea. So instead, we're going to do our own method. Because if you did it this way, it would just send them right to the login page for admin. And then you might have some user getting a smart idea where it's like, I'm going to try to go crazy and hack into the admin just because they felt like it. We might as well just avoid all of that confusion by saying authorize admin, which that's not a method. We're going to have to define that. But we're also only going to show this on certain pages. What I'll do is I'm going to copy what they're doing up here for the array syntax. So that's just like an advanced Ruby thing. You do %i. And it's going to convert this. Otherwise, this code would not work normally, but when you do %i, it converts it into a normal array with strings. What we'll do is we'll put in each action that we want to restrict to admin. So things like new, edit, create, date, just all the, actually, what we should probably do is we should do accept. That'll be a lot easier. Just say accept, and then the only ones that we really want users to see are the show and the index. Everything else is kind of off limits. So if we reload now, I'm going to get this error, undefined method authorize admin. And they even have this did you mean section. Did you mean authenticate? No, we don't want to do authenticate. Actually, we could do that real quick, just so I show you guys how that would look. See, so what it looks like is it actually brings you to login. Not a great idea. Instead, we'll just block them off by creating our own method. I'll do this at the bottom of this folder. I'm going to add authorize admin method, and we'll say redirect to root path. If not, admin. We could also add in a custom like alert if we wanted to. You don't have permission to view this page. Now if we reload and try to go to new blog post, you'll see that it shows this error. You don't have permission to view this page. So cool. If anybody gets a smart idea, like I want to, let's say, destroy the blog post, guess what? You don't have permission to do that. So that's pretty awesome. And one thing that we might want to do is if you guys are going to create any other actions in your app, probably just want to, instead of defining this on one controller, We can define this in the application controller so that we can reuse it. Probably want to set this in a protected method or in a protected section. Means you can't just call this anywhere. We can get into that later. So now let's get into actually creating the admin accounts. So if we go in the URL to admin sign in again, you'll see that we are able to log in as an admin. We have this very big security vulnerability where we have create an account option for admins. We're going to let anybody that goes to this page create an account and become an admin. Yeah, that's not good. So I'm going to quickly fix that by removing the register option. To do that, we can go over to the app models admin.rb. On this admin model, you'll notice we have this devise section where you have all the options of like different things that you can add for a user. So we have like rememberable. If you want an admin to be able to like stay signed in, which that might also be a security vulnerability, you might just want to remove that. Validatable, it's probably fine. Recoverable, so that means can they send a password to their email and reset it? If you don't want them to do that, you could just remove this. But the most important thing is registerable. This is going to allow anybody on the site to sign up. So for an admin, we definitely don't want that. We can just delete that. Now what will happen is if we reload, check it out, there's not even a path for signing up. If we go back to sign in, we still have the path, but it's, oh yeah, it's way slimmed down. We can create our password, which is all right. Cool. So we don't actually have an admin account right now. As you can see, tried to sign in. Oh, that's weird. Getting rid of the rememberable actually caused an error. It's funny. So I'm gonna put that back. I guess maybe that's important. Oh, because I see, because we'd have to manually delete the remember me if we wanted to not show that. All right, that's fine. What I wanted to show you guys is that this is totally getting locked down. Nobody's going to be able to log in as an admin unless they have the email and password. Because you can't create one, now we have to do this manually from the back end. What I'll do is I'll go into the Rails console, doing Rails C, then we're going to create an admin user. So we'll give this an email. I'm just going to say admin@blog.com. And for the password, I can come up with something really secure, although because this is just a video, I'm just going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we can create that admin user. And just like that, we have that new user. So we can go ahead and go back, restart the server, and log in as an admin. Go ahead and do it. We can do say admin@blog.com. Of course, the password 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And let's log in. And boom. Now we have access to the full site. We're going to be able to delete blog posts, edit blog posts, as you are an admin. We could even add in like something at the top to let the person know that they're signed in as admin. We could go to views, layouts, application. Why don't we just render a new partial? Render /layouts/admin. Yeah, say like admin, I guess. And we're only going to do this if current_admin. So that's a really helpful thing from devise is you get this method current and then whatever the model is. So you can check, is someone signed in by doing this? If there's an admin, if there's a current admin there, it means that the user is signed in. So if we reload, oh, I never created the partial file. So I'm going to do that real quick. We're going to the layouts folder and creating an _admin HTML.erb partial. And I'm going to simply just do span that says logged in as admin. We can even display the user or the email address. So we could say current admin.email, reload, and boom, we now get this text up there at the top, which will let people know that they are an account. So it'll let the admin know. Yeah. that's good for now. Yeah, I think this is good. So probably the one last thing I'm gonna do is let's test this out in incognito. So for someone who's not signed in, what we're probably gonna want to do is just hide all the buttons to do stuff that they aren't supposed to do, because there's no reason having this button to create a blog post if they don't have permission to do it, right? Like, why show the button? So to change that, we can go over to blog posts index. That's where our first button is. So right here for the new blog post, I'll just go all the way at the end. I'll say if current admin, and now that button disappears. But if we go back to the blog post where we do have the admin account, we see that we do have the button. That's very good. Now if I go to read the blog post, we want to handle this by going down here to the bottom. So see, you're going to see all these buttons, which we probably only want to show like the back button. We might not even want to show the back button because we have this whole thing here, although might as well show the back button because there's no harm in that. But we definitely want to hide the edit and the destroy link. To do that, we'll go over to the blog post show page, and we can basically just add two things. These if current admin. So those are only going to show for an admin account. And as soon as we reload, we no longer see those buttons. But of course, on the admin, a user logged in as admin, you do see the buttons. Right. And I think that's pretty good. Honestly, I'm just happy to record this video. I think the one thing that we didn't do is we didn't set the SEO. Did not set SEO yet. To quickly do that, we could go over to blog post show page, and here we have like content for title. Oh, that's one thing, the meta title. We could actually say, instead of this showing blog post, we could say the blog post, either just the title, probably a good idea, just the title of the blog post. And you can view all of this like content for stuff if you go over to layouts application. That's where we're using that. So as you can see, the title, we're setting this content for title or just the name of the app. And we're also yielding head. So that means we can put whatever we want in the head from particular files by saying content for head. And I think we can just pass a block, say do, then we can put whatever we want to shove into the head right here. So I'm going to quickly look up like important meta tags for SEO. Usually what I do, important meta tags SEO. Look that up. This is what people are going to say, although I don't like how they're using React. I'm going to try to find another example. On need like SEO meta tags. Here we go. It doesn't, I know it doesn't have all of them, but like the description one, that's something that we can do right away. So for the description, we could probably put, oh yeah, the meta description. That field, say blog post dot meta description. Now we are going to put that up in the meta. So if I reload, boom, there's no error, so that's good. But if we inspect now, we go up to the head, you'll notice that we have this meta description, the meta description that we set. So that's very nice. The other thing that we added is that image for the meta. So that's called like OG, and it's also, they have one for Twitter. So it means when you share a URL, it will be able to show an image when you share it to stuff like Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff. So we'll do that real quick right here by doing, we can set all the OG stuff, which OG is Open Graph, which I'm pretty sure is what Instagram and Facebook uses. We'll shove this in here. For OG title, that's just going to be the blog post title. Post title. For the type, I honestly don't really know what to put for the type. Probably just text. I don't know. Let me look that up. OG type. This OG type meta tag. It says defines the type of content. It could be website, article. Okay, so article. That's the one we want to do. A little bit confused about that, but it's definitely a blog article. For the URL, I think we just put in, we could say URL4, which will automatically grab the current URL. Image, we're going to put a path to the image, and that's where that blog post dot, what was it called, like meta image, I think that's what I called it. We want to do URL for that image. You can also only do that if there is one attached, just to avoid any errors. See if that works. Reload. There's no error, but I'm going to go inspect the head and check for the OG image. And it does show up, although, hold up. It looks like it only shows a local path, which could be a bad thing. Not sure why it only shows local. What about just the URL? It also shows only local. Huh. So if we look up URL4 in Rails, we can see what this does. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to give you full path, but maybe it only gives you a short path. Must pass the host argument. So, no, I swear I used to do this without passing the host. Or maybe it just didn't work. I'll look that up. How to get full path for current action in Rails. Apparently it's not URL4. Not this. Find out how to get full URL page. Oh, look, we can say request.original URL. Although I don't know if you'd want to put this up here. I guess why not? So that's for the OG URL. Now, as far as the image URL, I need to find out how to get full URL to the storage attachment. Else, which I always thought URL4 does that. Apparently, it doesn't. So we can say dot service URL, or we could say now with Rails 6, which we're on Rails 8. That was a long time ago. We can just say dot URL. Makes sense. So what we'll do is instead of saying URL4, say dot URL. Ooh, we're already debugging. Oh, we got an error though. What the heck? Oh, I did double embedded Ruby. That's funny. Reload that. We also got an error. It says cannot generate URL because we don't have the active storage current. So that means like they're basically complaining that they don't know what the host of our app is. But we can automatically set that. I think there's something called set current. Yep. All we have to do is include this module into where we're going to want to set our URLs. So what I'll do is I'll put that on in the controllers. I'm just going to put it on the application controller because why not? I'll do include active storage set current. We can go ahead, reload, and we no longer get the error. Now I'm going to inspect, just make sure that we get the full URL. Yes, we do, finally. Oh wait, that's on the image. Let's look ahead. Yep, we do. So OG URL is the full URL. We also have the OG image is full. So that's hilarious. I think in my blog app, or in the blog for one of my apps, I didn't even have it showing the correct image. And I was confused, like why wasn't, when I shared it on Discord or something, like the image didn't pop up and I was confused. Because URL4 doesn't give the full URL, apparently. All right, now that we got that squared away, honestly, this is pretty good, but if you did want to support Twitter, probably you guys want to do, you can look up Twitter meta tags. just go ahead and grab these. It looks like this. It's like basically the same exact stuff, but for Twitter. This is pretty like easy stuff to do, so it's not that big of a deal. So for Twitter card, I guess that's like how you want it to show up. So if you want there to be large image, I guess that's good. For the site, you can put the name of your site. So for ours, which is like blog app, I guess. Title, again, blog post title. And then for the description, probably do the meta description. Meta. Oops. Meta description, and then for the image, let's grab the same URL from up there. That same code to get the URL. And boom, now we've taken care of all this meta stuff, and it's going to work no matter what blog post you're on. It's going to still grab all this stuff and set it up. That's pretty cool. Probably close out of here. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with this, honestly. Very happy with this app. I know there's definitely some stuff that we can improve on, but if you guys want to see more, definitely leave a comment, like the video. Let me know what you want to see me build next.